IPMNation.com.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome, it's Brian, and you're listening to All Natural Being. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. If you're listening here in the States, you know today is a holiday. It's Labor Day, so this is a part of a big 3-day weekend. And I hope wherever you're doing, you're having a blast doing it. Whether you're hanging out by yourself, some quality me time, or you're hanging out with family and friends, whatever you got going on, I hope you're having a blast. And in addition to welcoming you, letting you know that I hope your weekend's going great, I also want to thank you for stopping by, clicking in, jumping on, hanging out, however you got here, to the number one rated show. Still blows my mind. Number one rated show on IPM Nation. It's a show, I hope, that inspires you to be inspired by you. That's it. You, the mirror, and your smile. That's why I dig doing this show 5 days a week, coming in and going, nope, I think you're a rock star. I do. And believe me, I try. I study. I read a little bit, I've been told. I read a little bit. I try to refute what I think all the time. I set up every day to see if there's some new way to undermine what I do here 5 days a week. Is there some new way? Some new study, some stone I haven't overturned, to where I can say, yeah, no, there's no superhuman in you. There's no metahuman in you. There's no rock star in you. I've been doing this for over 30 years now. 30 years. And I can tell you, some of these days, especially like today, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. Right now, I'll be happy to glue together 3 20-minute victories, get it out of the show. Allergies are kicking a little bit, which is really kind of interesting to me. You know, I get credit for being an outdoor adventure expert or outdoor survival expert, if I'm doing some of the television that deal with that. You've heard the concept of a spiritual survival expert. But I'm always fascinated, because here's something you should know. I'm allergic to 3 things. Bees, like if I get stung, I'm allergic to bees. The second thing I'm allergic to, trees. I'm not trying to rhyme, but I'm allergic to tree pollen. And I'm also allergic to the sun. I get skin cancer, right? I'm just allergic to the sun. And I try to protect myself. I do such a great job, I think, in protecting myself from the sun, that there are times I'll go to the doctor, and the doctor goes, we got to put you on emergency injections of vitamin D. And I go, well, doc, make up your mind. If I'm either too much in the sun or too much not in the sun. So what fascinates me about all of this is that you think I'd be better off being an indoor adventure expert, working at IKEA, picking out carpet and drapes and throw rug patterns and pillows and the like. Because of all the time I enjoy spending outside, the trees are gunning for me, the bees are gunning for me, the sun is gunning for me. So let me apologize in advance for my voice this morning. But what are you going to do? You know. Into every life a little allergy must fall, I suspect, and I'm fully gripped my mind. But as you know, if you listened on Friday, I'm very excited about today's show. Because I did suggest on Friday that you spend a portion of this weekend being a hedonist, being a narcissist, being your own best friend, being your own biggest fan. 20 minutes, that's all. Just 20 minutes. And I wanted to hear how you did it. What specifically did you do to be your own best friend? What did the people around you say? That's what I couldn't wait to hear. People go, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing thinking about yourself? What are you doing putting yourself on top of the list first? What's going on here? So, 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Let me know, how did you do it? What specifically did you do? What specifically? This weekend. 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL, SOUL. I'd love to hear it. I've got some of them coming in right now. Here's one. Spend some time just hanging out. I like it. Well, what did you do? Did you just hang out? Let me know. 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. All right, so I want to take a quick opportunity this morning to remind you as well that when I say you're a rare breed, when I say that you're the top 1% of 1%, everyone talks about 1%ers. That you truly are, if you decide to channel who you ultimately are. And I'm getting a text right now from a friend. Didn't realize you were a prepper. Seems a long road to the all natural in you. And yes, and I'll tell you what my career, if you will, talk about channeling your all natural being, a career, if you will, as a prepper was a little short-lived because I was busy making fun of a lot of that. Right? A little more tongue-in-cheek, a little more... here's what... We did a National Geographic thing at one point. And it didn't go really well because they wanted me... It was a huge thing. As a matter of fact, I had to later sign something going, you don't let anyone know what goes on behind the scenes. But some pretty wild stuff, and I refused to do it because that's not what being a spiritual self-defense expert is. Being a prepper just means, like, do you buy automobile insurance? Then you're a prepper. Do you wear a seatbelt? You're a prepper. If you have kids, you save for their college fund. Then you're a prepper. So for me, being a, quote, prepper didn't mean that I had to have a 50 caliber machine gun and a tractor trailer load of ammunition. I didn't have to do all these things. For me, being a prepper was just trying to be prepared for anything. That's all I wanted to do. So that being in an aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, being in the aftermath of tornadoes, all the different things I've done, I've done that to be able to make sure, especially when you have family, you have children, you have friends, you have neighbors, that if something were to happen, could they count on you? Could they count on you? And when you look at your kids, you look at anyone. Oh, hold on a second. Here's an even better story than that one. I wanted to be in a position, 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Let me just say this quickly. Went to a movie. Large group of unsupervised teenagers. I left the theater and brought back the theater manager and the security officer. Well, there you go. That's making sure if you paid for the movie that you're being able to see it, standing up for yourself. I dig that, which really walks right in line with, I take it that means you're listening. Another text, 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Yeah. Oh, well, yes. on the air, as I promised, waiting to hear. So what happened? So you went, you got the theater manager, they came by with security. If they, did they end up kicking the people out? Could you watch the movie? What movie was it you went to see? I love that. So a 20-minute victory might be, hey, I treated myself to a movie. I get there, bunch of unsupervised teenagers. Can you have really supervised teenagers? But a bunch of unsupervised teenagers tearing it up. So you stood up for yourself. I love that. Which is really all about the prepper thing. I just wanted to make sure that, what was the tagline? I think, when you can't call on anyone else, can you call on yourself? So it's kind of like the same thing with martial arts. As you know, I grew up, at least in the earliest stages of my life, because of the hair lip, I grew up being bullied. So early on, I had to become a prepper. I prepared for the eventuality of another fight after school, right? Someone pushing in one side of their nose, making fun of my hair lip or the like. So, yes, that's what made me a prepper very early on, was what if you couldn't call for the principal to come break up the fight? What if after a natural disaster? And here's what I harp on when people ask me, well, what do you think the state of the union is? And this is a no fault of their own. But there's not enough paramedics. Not enough police officers in your town. I don't care where you live. If, heaven forbid, 6 calls went into your emergency center at the same time, you could be on the bubble. So for me, if you know how to do CPR, you're a prepper. If you know how to stop, suppose someone cuts themselves or breaks a bone or has a heart attack or any of those other things, would you know how to take care of them? What about yourself? Let's say something happens that you cut yourself in some way. Would you be able to stop the bleeding long enough? Would you know how to get yourself to the hospital? Let's say you couldn't drive. Kubo was the movie. Kubo, K-U-B-O. I have to check that. I wasn't even familiar with that. Kubo. And yes, the unruly teenagers were finally kicked out. Hopefully you had a chance to enjoy the rest of Kubo. But that was the beginning. Don't be using logic. That was the beginning. Yeah, okay, I won't use logic. Oh, plus, I just love running around in the camper. I spent all that time out in the middle of nowhere. I was prepared for some stuff like that. But yes, that was my beginning, and I still do it. I'll be in Miami next week, I believe, talking about Zika, how one might protect themselves from that. And it really, my birth in terms of doing that was, even as a police officer, I guess you could say as a police officer in New York all those years, you're kind of a prepper. You have a shotgun in your car in case, just in case. So for me, I developed very early on a just in case. Maybe it comes from the fact that my father left when I was really, really young. My brothers and sisters and I were very young. So I just kind of had to fend for myself. And that was the beginning of my days as a prepper. And short-lived, as it were, because when there are people in the prepper industry, just like self-help industry tacticians, there are people in the prepper industry that like the idea of building a moat and filling it full of alligators. There are people that love the idea of having a drone overhead 24/7 spotting whatever might happen, right? They got your yard watch. They got all these other things, gallons and gallons and gallons of water and all these other things stored. But all I was saying was, as a little kid, I had to be prepared. What if? And I guess it just stuck with me. But that the industry was like, oh, well, we're not sure you're radical enough for us. And I remember at one particular point, they wanted to stage, I'm not even supposed to say this, I signed that form. Let's just say I wasn't their guy. I wasn't the lunatic that they wanted everyone on to be. But I get calls all the time, still from television production companies around the world and local television studios and stations. And I love going on and talking about preparedness. If you have a loved one, if they fell over and had a heart attack, would you know what to do? So that's just it. I love the ability to be able to say to my family, my friends, get behind my back. Get behind me. I can handle whatever we got coming at us. And maybe a part of it is, I just don't want to, I don't want someone to say to me, hey, I need help, or how do we get out of this, and let them down. So for me, it's especially the passion for being a spiritual survival expert, because that was the very beginning of all of it, of what if? What if this happens? What if that happens? What would I do? Because in this day and age, as I've said, and then we'll move off of this, in this day and age, in an emergency situation, you pick up the phone, you're lucky to get a dial tone. And even if you can get a dial tone, you're not sure you'll be able to get an operator. And even if the operator answers, she might not even have the ability to send help. They could be out in other places, doing other things. So for me, my fallback was, I'm not going to dial 911. I'll be able to do what I need to in the very beginning to kind of balance the scales, whatever the threat's going to be, to balance the scales and make sure that the people around me don't panic. Because one of the things left over from the time, outside in the wilderness is that if you panic, you perish. And I just never wanted to be in a position to panic and then let the people around me down. So yes, that was that was my career as a prepper. And I loved the studying. I love the different things I do. Let me just suggest this, if I may. There's some pretty cool books out there, first aid books, wilderness survival books, some of the things like that. I just put them on my iPad. I bought the digital version of it. So in an emergency situation, if I grab my, a crash kit, right? You grab a first aid kit. Even this, do you have a first aid kit in your home? Do you have a first aid kit? You have a fire extinguisher in your home? Then you're a prepper. Do you know how to use your first aid kit? Now, don't laugh. I've seen people take the syringe in a first aid kit, which, as you know, is used to irrigate a wound, and they go, well, what do I inject myself with? No, you don't inject yourself. It's streams of clean water to irrigate a wound. But even with our young kids now, all of my kids, in an emergency situation, what's the first thing you're going to do? What's the second thing you're going to do? And the benefit of it is, heaven forbid an emergency situation ever happens, they're already grooved. They're into it. They're doing it. Of course, they know the best acronym. They know how to stay focused in the moment. Because, again, when you panic, you perish. So, yes, thank you very much. 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. What you do this weekend? What do you do? What are you doing now, for that matter, to kind of pamper yourself? Because we all deserve it. What do you do to kind of be your own best friend, to be your own biggest fan? 331-684-7685. All right, here's a story that I thought was pretty interesting. It says, psychology debunks. I gotta love that word, debunks. Psychology debunks the idea that we'd be happier if we lived somewhere else. Where am I getting this from? Oh, Quartz, where this article ran. Subtitle, nice place to visit, but do you really want to live there? They got a picture of a young lady, it looks like, reading a book underneath the Eiffel Tower. Or a replica of the Eiffel Tower, maybe. I don't think there's that. I believe that might be what it is. But you ever get in that situation, you travel someplace, you go, oh, this would be... Melody Warnick is the author. You get that place where you travel somewhere and you go, oh, I would love to live here. But for me, that becomes a little bit of a trap too. Now, I love Belize. I like hanging out in the water. I'm not much of a scuba diver, but I like to snorkel. I like to explore the ruins. I like the jungle. I love the sounds of howler monkeys in the morning, right? But according to this article now, we find out that if we're always looking for greener grass somewhere else, it doesn't really work, because then you get to that greener grass and your mind's automatically ready to look for another plot of greener grass. So what happens is that when we're in this constant state of flux, this instant thought of, oh, it'll always be better somewhere else, always be better somewhere else, we don't pay attention to the blessings, to the benefits, whatever you want to call them. You don't pay attention to the things that you're capable of right now in this moment. And then we tend to overestimate how happy we're going to be in the new environment. But really, you and I are busy dragging ourselves into that environment. So we really can only be as happy. Yes, I'd like to snorkel every day. Yes, I'd like to do some fishing from time. I just think it's cool. Like, what are you going to do for dinner? Oh, we're going to go out and go fishing. I kind of dig that. Or eating coconuts from the trees, that kind of thing. But it doesn't surprise me that psychologists in this report found out that, yeah, you know, maybe it isn't always better over there. Maybe it isn't. As long as we're taking us with us when we get there, if we're truly unhappy, unsuccessful, unfulfilled, in whatever way that it would be, then we're still carting that along with us. So my thought in all natural being is making sure that we're just thrilled with who we are to our spine right now, with our capabilities. And if you're here, you've got them. So be thrilled with who you are, with everything that came hardwired in you. And you're going to take those wherever you go. You could have the adventure of a lifetime. It's been a while since we've talked about it, but you know, adventure, something about to happen, as opposed to, say, an expedition where you're getting from point A to point B. You look at trees. You look at leaves. You look at the root systems. It's never a straight path. Nature doesn't seem to dig straight paths very much. It's crooked. It's just like the labyrinth. The lefts and rights, the ups and downs, the pivots and swerves. No dead ends, only a cul-de-sac. So when you and I hone our head with our heart in this moment, then everywhere we go is a really cool place to explore. You have a situation in your life where you thought, oh, if I could only get here or there, then everything would just be peaches and cream, right? I can say peaches and cream. Everything would just be great. Then you get there and you go, you know what? Yeah, it's nice. You know, if I had some friends where I used to be, or, you know, there was a certain comfort being where I used to be. Now, I love the sense of exploration. I love the sense, that Tom Hanks movie, I'm going to forget the name of it again, Stranded, you know, where the airplane goes down. I think he works for FedEx, and he's marooned on an island, stranded on an island. He's got Wilson, I think his friend Wilson is the volleyball. Anyway, at the very end of that movie, if you haven't seen it, I'll give you a second to put your fingers in your ears in case you're thinking, well, the movie's been out 20 years. Brian went ahead and ruined the ending for me. It'd be helpful if I could come up with the name of the darn thing. But anyway, he, at the very end of the movie, he does what he needs to do, and he comes out to that crossroad. He can go 4 different directions if he stays on the surface of the roads. 4 different directions. And you get the sense as the movie fades to black, that's what life is all about. You choose in the moment which way you're going to go, what you're going to do. So it might very well be that it's just the adventure itself with no destination in mind. You go just to go. You ever do that? You ever go out for a drive? Just see where the road takes you? Ever go out for a walk, run, see where the path takes you, or maybe you trail your own, or blaze your own trail? So maybe this constant looking outside of ourselves, someplace else, the grass is always greener. It's been my estimation, all these years, with all this study, that your grass is pretty green where it is right now. And that you're, as I say all the time, you're a rock star. And that when you remember that, life becomes a pretty simple gig. Lots of challenges. I'm not saying there's no challenges. It becomes a pretty simple gig when we remember who we ultimately are. All right, we'll be right back.
IPMNation.com.
I want to thank my friend Oliver for a couple texts this morning. Sorry, I got down that rabbit hole of being a prepper and what that means. But here's the thing. When you go out at night, let's say you're going out to dinner, you leave the front porch light on. Why? You do this? You ever go out, leave the TV on or the radio on just so in case anyone comes to your door, they'll think you're home? Oh, you lock the front door at night. You put your deadbolt on. Then you're a prepper. Now, don't let all the crazy preppers say, oh, you're not really a prepper. No. Well, because you don't have a flamethrower. You're not a prepper. I don't even go down there. I got to go. So, I got to tell you this. I was at a conference. I met a guy that, you don't even want to know. Never mind. So I met some pretty cool people, and by cool I mean just bad crap, crazy people, preppers. Like that being prepared was something unique just to them. And that's why I didn't last very long. I didn't last very long in that whole thing. Because I just wasn't crazy enough. Castaway. Oh, thank you. Just enough. Castaway with Tom Hanks. Thank you very much. So then hopefully you remember that as well. 331-684-7685. 331-684-SOUL. Castaway was the name of the movie. And I love that. It's like one of the coolest endings to a movie ever because he had no particular place to go and everywhere to get to. Open road. Go wherever he likes. Now, I don't sail. Been on a sailboat a couple times, but I'm no good at it. I don't possess the skill or the passion for it. But I always thought that would be pretty cool. You just kind of go. Where are you going to go? I get a little GPS. I'd tend to go over here. I'd tend to go over there. But I love it. That sense of adventure right now in the moment, the impromptu, the improv of it all. So thank you for that. Castaway was the name of the movie. All right. Here's another interesting article that I was pretty fired up about that I wanted to share with you this morning, because we're talking about what will it take for you to finally be your own biggest fan, your own best friend? Like, what would it take for you to go, yeah, Brian's right. People that hang out with him are right. The kindred, the rare breed, the elite, the 1% of all cognitions that realize they already have their all-natural being, and when they channel it, that's the gig. Well, if you don't do that, then I'd like to suggest that that's a bad habit of not looking at yourself in the mirror and smiling. So this particular article in The Science of Us suggests we go against, remember we talked, I think it was last week or the week before, where we said, most scientific research, not most, a good handful, couple good handfuls, like together, your fingers just split apart. You can hold a lot of it. A lot of the research is later debunked, the word we used in the last story. But here's what it says, what you should do. Carrie Rom says that instead of if you have a bad habit, she's throwing in behind a moving trend now that says, no. Let me give you the quote. Research in the frontiers in human neuroscience suggests that maybe we're all underestimating ourselves. Perhaps we can make those sweeping overhauls in our lives, changing the bad habits. We can do that more easily and more successfully than we think. And that maybe we're shortchanging ourselves by taking baby steps instead. So they did a study. Roughly half the students of this particular study served as a control group and continued their daily routines. The other half overhauled their lives completely. I can hear people going, oh, well, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not going to go crazy here, Brian. Quote, every morning, they visited the school for an hour of supervised stretching, resistance training, and balance exercises, followed by an hour of training in mindfulness and stress reduction. Which, I never like those words run together. You know that? Another little rabbit hole here. Mindfulness and stress reduction. We don't do mindfulness because we want stress to reduced. If you go into it with that mindset, if you will, all you're focusing on is the stress. Just like pink unicorns. Polka-dotted volleyballs in your garage. Your mind just focuses on what you tell it you don't want it to do. And we'll reduce our stress just remembering who we are. But according to this, they would do their mindfulness, which included quiet walks and meditation. In the afternoon, they exercised for an additional 90 minutes. Twice a week, they completed 2 interval-style endurance workouts on their own. They attended lectures about nutrition and sleep and kept daily logs. There you go, your fingerprints of Providence, writing them down, detailing their exercise, their diets, their sleep patterns, and moods. Quote, at the beginning and the end of the study, participants took a series of tests to measure emotional and cognitive changes and also went through exercises to test their flexibility, their strength, and their endurance. And when the 6 weeks was over, the ones who received a crash course in healthy habits were fitter, less stressed, had higher self-esteem, and reported better memories. And the pattern continued even 6 weeks after the workshops has ended. So no baby steps. They just went, growing up we would call it, spend some time in the South, we call it Hogwild. Went Hogwild. So what does it say? Quote, at any rate, there's an interesting challenge here. The limits of human capacity for change may be much greater than we, as scientists, have given people credit for. You think? Try approaching your goals with full throttle effort rather than measured caution. And success may come faster instead of not at all. If you're really throwing caution to the wind, maybe you get the key. Maybe that's it. Now, for a lot of people, the 20-second victory, the 20-minute victories, are the beginning stages so that they're scalable, they're stackable. But here's a report that says, look, if you're going to try, it starts off by talking about if you want to floss your teeth. If that's a challenge, it's not something you incorporate into your daily routine. Thank you. I just got a text. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what that means, but thank you very much. Report talks about maybe the best way is to just floss between 2 teeth. Just floss 1 tooth. And then you're going to find as you get into it, I'm already here. I'm standing in front of the sink. I got this piece of string wedged in my mouth. I might as well just finish it. But as far as us believing, underestimating ourselves, absolutely couldn't agree more. So what happens is when people say I procrastinate, when people say, this whole concept of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, when you channel your all-natural being, you're capable of walking, talking, and chewing gum at the same time, yes? So I'm glad to see that these research reports are coming out saying, look, people underestimate themselves habitually. Underestimate themselves. So that task is too much for me. No way I'm going to be able to do it. So maybe for a 20-minute victory, if you have 3 or 4 different habits, I say let's group them all in. Let's be our own petri dish here. Let's be our own crash test dummy and try some of this in our lives. What are some of the habits that you're like, oh man, I'd like to be able to do this or not do this? Which is always kind of cool because when the people that I work with, the clients that I have, presentations that I've given in the past, blah, 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 blah. But they'll say, I want to stop doing X. And my first thought is to always redirect. So instead of saying, I want to quit X, I take the opposite and say, I want to increase Y minus X. So people say, I want to give up smoking. And for me, the people that I've worked with, I do a slight redirect and say, well, let's adopt a healthy lifestyle. So what could we do? It's just not about quitting something. What else could we do? And then when people preoccupied, I guess is a good word, but when we start to focus on those things like a healthy, being kind to our body, being compassionate to our lungs, then the one thing that we wanted to get rid of, what the X was, we're so distracted working on the opposite of the Y minus X. So what could you do? What's something that as you think about your life, you go, oh, it would be great if, and then for 20 minutes we could implement that in our lives. That's a 20-minute victory. So I'm all over this article suggesting, let me ask you, do you underestimate yourself? I'll bet you do. I think you've forgotten all kinds of things as it pertains to your ability, your strengths, your resilience. Most certainly, again, as the article says, the limits of human capacity for change may be much greater than what we've given people credit for. And then when you have your all-natural being as your home base, you can venture out and try different things, knowing that you have your home base in your core, the marrow of your mind, dovetailing your heart and your head so that nothing can touch you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. How much longer will you let them hijack your head and your heart?
How much longer are we going to let them hijack our heads and our hearts? How much longer are we going to be the co-conspirator in that happening? I believe that you're a force of nature. And that your higher power, however you define it, however you define your divine, kicking back, waiting for you to remember who you are, where you are, and why you're here. Why are you here? I guess another question would be, why do we settle for a farce of a life when you really are a force of nature, the rare breed that I talk about? So is today the day we get off our butts and make some room in our life for our life? Is today the day we make some room in our hectic schedule to dovetail our own heart and our head? To spend a moment or two in the mirror going, you know what? Thanks for the run. This is great. Was it a Labor Day celebration, a party, a block party, however you want to call it? All the neighbors get together and they block off. They get these traffic horses, stanchions, whatever they call it. The legs cross and you put a board that says "Do not pass," or I think these said the name of the town where I live. Everyone's busy getting set up, and all of a sudden, I noticed this vehicle. I guess I can say Jeep, which is odd because it's a Jeep. He could have just driven around it. But I saw this guy just before the party was getting started, comes up to one of these roadblocks, and he's ticked. And my attention is first drawn to him because I hear his wheels screech a little bit. And I look up, and he hops out of the car, and he grabs, I don't think he anticipated it was as heavy as it was going to be. So he grabs the cross beam and goes to lift it up over his head. He may have knocked himself in the forehead. I saw him stumble back a little bit. And then he takes it and he throws it. And then he grabs the two little legs of each. They look like, pyramids. It's two little triangular leg things. He tosses one, and then he comes back, and now he's just furious because I don't think he realized he wasn't strong enough to do what must have looked good in his mind when he pulled up. So then he goes and he gets the other thing, and he hurls that one, and it sounded like 3 gunshots. As these things would hit. And then I hear him, he gets back in his car, and he screeches his tires, and he, I'll show them. He drives away. So I thought about it. how tough must your day be when you come up to, and you have a Jeep, right? You just could have driven, you probably just could have driven up on the grass and go, right? It's a Jeep, right? I mean, that's a different joke. Everyone that drives a Jeep that doesn't drive it like it's a Jeep. But how tough can your day be when you think, yeah, I think I'll beat up a traffic stanchion? And I would offer that that individual could spend 20 minutes a day being a little better friend to himself so that he wouldn't have to assault traffic control devices. And, you know, other people are like, did you hear those shots? And I said, they weren't shots. They go, well, how do you know? I go, honestly, goodness, right, I happen to be right there. I mean, right there. When Needle Nits jumped out of his Jeep and decided to go all javelin, shot put, and discus on a traffic control device. So I'm suggesting that he could use 20 minutes to get off his own back. For you and I, we most certainly can use 20 minutes to actively embrace the authentic reality that we have at our core. The marrow of our minds, the sap of our soul. Which is why we talk all the time on All Natural Being about the PreBaggage. That guy yesterday pulling up and karate chopping, whatever he was doing. I mean, I know I had to take a picture of this while it was going down, right? It's just too funny. So I know who it is, the license plate, and all the rest of that, right? But you're like, Brian, where do you live? Just last month, you got a picture of the peach felons stealing some fruit, the bag lady and the watcher, and then now this guy comes flying up and goes all Karate Kid. Understand you? I think he's got a lot of baggage. But for you and I and the people that challenge their all-natural being and we go, and nope, I'm going to pre-baggage. That's what I'm interested in. Before the bubble wrap, before I was coddled, before all the rest of these things. Before. What did I have? My all-natural being. Everyone running around. Oh, I can't wait. I want a new me. Well, I dig the old you. I dig the real you. So what do you say? No more brainwashing. No more blind spots. Sort of little bags of BS. What if we just, outside of all the psycho fat and flab, what if we just get back to the pre-baggage you? Where you get to be your own cheerleader, your own confidant. I love being the tag team partner, as you know. It's a great gig. But what would you do if for 20 minutes you could be your own best friend? How would you treat yourself? What would you do? Now, if it's been a while, like my friend who, assaulting the road crossing thing, maybe it's been a while. How about for you? Has it been a while since you pampered yourself? Has it been a while since you treated yourself? So maybe there's a little voice in your head that goes, oh, Brian, I'm too busy for your nuttiness today. I can't do this. And I'm suggesting 1/72nd of your day. Embrace who you are. No more escaping. You deserve to think your best. You deserve to have a mind that works for you. It's not the other way around. Because ultimately, that's the key to happiness. Using your mind as opposed to your mind using you. And to the degree that you fight this concept of being a hedonist for 20 minutes, now again, making sure no one else is hurt, right? We're not, right? But being a narcissist, 20 minutes. just to be your own biggest fan. And then all these things we want to shed. Everyone wants, the diet industry. Oh, I got to lose weight. I got to lose this. I got to lose that. It has been my experience, just for whatever it's worth, that instead of losing something, if you embrace who you already are, you tend to be a little more compassionate. You tend to be someone that champions yourself to yourself. But all those things that we want to get rid of, we look back a little later and go, what? You know what? I did used to do that, didn't I? Or I did do this, or I didn't do that. Whatever it may be. But when we go back to the things, because you have every right to be proud of yourself. Every right. Don't let anyone talk you out of that. Have there been some things in the past maybe we didn't handle perfectly? Of course. You and me, we're just alike. Not everything could have been, not everything worked out the way maybe that we thought it would. So when we talk about, before you fall asleep at night, we talk about, our own top 10 list, the top 10 things you're grateful for. Top 10 ways you could be compassionate. Top 10 people you could forgive in your life, or situations that you could forgive. What also starts? Top 10 ways you could be compassionate to yourself. Oh, I'll be happy if I lose 35 pounds. Whatever. I'll be happy if some other goal down the road. Well then, if you're going to be happy, why not start right now? Instead of saying, oh, I'll be so much happier when X happens, it's just the way you relate it to yourself. That's all it is. We talked about that other article, the grass is always greener on the other side. Well, that's whether even in terms of situations in your belief structure or places that you plan on moving to, grass is always greener. Oh, tomorrow will be better. Maybe it won't be. But right now is pretty cool. Right now you could make or break your day. You've got a first-class brain. And when you blend that all-natural intelligence, that all-natural mind, when you blend that with the impromptu at hand, you'll just kick indoors and you find yourself smiling, giving yourself reasons to be proud of yourself. Because the real you, it can't be unhappy. Real you can't be overwhelmed, can't be depressed or stressed out. Those are adopted attitudes. This morning I got a package. UPS shows up. Package from Amazon. Here, could you sign for this? You and I have talked about it before. Suppose that was something I didn't want. I don't sign for it. He's got to take it back. So when we have attitudes that are that same way, let's just not stand for them. Unhappiness, attitude. Overwhelmed, attitude. Depressed or stressed out, attitudes. It's not the authentic you. They're adopted attitudes, borrowed beliefs. We could even call them self-imposed boundaries, couldn't we? That you deploy, that you maintain to keep your ultimate potential in check. 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Let me apologize again for my voice. Allergies. Right? They were having that block party, so I decided Friday I would go and cut the grass. Talk about grass being greener on the other side. You know what I would like? I think I'd like to live in a part of the world where you have cactus in your front yard, right? You don't have to cut your grass. So in any event, out cutting the grass helped trigger the allergies in me. So I apologize for the voice working the way it is this morning. Cutting the grass, I should have known better, right? So what can you do right now for the next 20 minutes? Today's a holiday. If you're fortunate enough to have it off, what could you do? Because I know, and you know this too. You know that you have what it takes to be great. You already have it. So the simple answer is, what can I do for the next 20 minutes? All it takes is for you to be you. All it takes is for you to be you. The real you, the true you, not the watered down, tepid you. The real you. All right, another article that I want to kick around today from Science Daily shows small chunks of mindfulness meditation alleviates stress, according to this report. Quote, mindfulness meditation has become an increasingly popular way for people to improve their mental and physical health. Yet most research supporting its benefits has focused on lengthy, week-long training programs. Well, this new research, this study's done at Carnegie Mellon University, was the first to show that even brief mindfulness meditation practices alleviate psychological stress. Well, let's look at that for a second. You and I both know 20-minute victories. Talk about them every day. How could it be, though? What is the underlying neuromechanical aspect that causes it to relieve stress? Well, one, when we're meditating, the binge thinking's going on. We're not jumping in with it. We're not jumping on the bandwagon. So it's a two-pronged approach. We're not going crazy with minds tailored for a treadmill, getting us from A to B and all the stress that involves. But two, it really does reconnect you with the pre-baggage you. And it begins to work instantly. These people, oh, well, I've been meditating for, and if I could just say this, one of the keys for someone that's been meditating a long time, they'll never tell you how long they've been doing it. They might reference, I started this when I was this or that. But it's not a placard. It's not a T-shirt. It's not something to be bragged about. But the two-pronged approach to alleviating the stress is, one, no binge thinking. Two, you're just reminded of who you ultimately are. According to the article, the participants who received the brief mindfulness meditation training reported reduced stress perceptions to the speech and math tasks that they were given, indicating that the mindfulness meditation fostered a psychological stress resilience. Well, of course it would. What is resilience? Let's just break it down. What's resilience? Resilience is just remembering who you already are. Someone says, how are we going to get more resilient? Remember more parts, bigger chunks of who you ultimately are. Because human beings, for all the different things Mother Nature tries to do to knock us off this planet, human beings are remarkably resilient. You are remarkably resilient. So when we do our 20-minute victories, our inner orienteering, when we do those things and it reconnects us with who we ultimately are, it doesn't have to be weeks, months, years. I went on an 8-week silence retreat. God love you. Hope you enjoyed your time, because we probably could have pulled it off for you in 8 minutes. Right? Oh, it was on the water. They had nice little cabins. So yeah, great. It was a fantastic vacation. But we could do in 20 minutes. What's alleged to happen in these extended meditation and the like, mindfulness, it's all inner orienteering. 20 minutes, reconnecting you with who you ultimately are, the badass that's in you. And then when you do that, of course some of the stress is going to fall away. And people go, well, that's how I increased my resilience. You already have it. You just have to decide, do you want to use it? No looking for it. 20 minutes at a time. What could you do today to prove? Do me a favor. Will you help me out? It's a holiday, so I know it's a lot to ask a favor, but do me one little favor if you would. Today, set the timer on your watch, your phone, set an egg timer, microwave oven on timer, whatever you want to do. And for just 20 minutes, Think of the ways in the past where you've called on your resilience and it's been there for you. Didn't go anywhere. Maybe dormant. It's not dead. But for 20 minutes, let your mind run wild and think of those times where you've been resilient. Oh, great. Hey, speaking about being resilient, I did get a thank you. I wasn't sure there was someone very nice. That was very sweet. Thank you. Sent me a picture of what pollen's supposed to be like. I saw that. I couldn't figure out what that was. I'm like, oh, thank you very much. Also moderate, back-breaking, bone-crushing. Well, look, I like the, Friday and Saturdays. Just supposed to be back-breaking and bone-crushing allergies. So look, you can forget, don't even, and you know exactly who you are when I say this. Don't even think of getting me to cut the grass next weekend. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. All right, let me see. Another text I just got in. I have never been as strong as I wanted to be, but I've always been as strong as I needed to be. Yes, yes. So then, if you look at the first part of that sentence, thank you very much. I've never been as strong as I wanted, but I've always been as strong as I needed to be. You know what, brother? That's being a prepper. That's being this comes full circle now with this text. That's what it means. Resilience, to always be as strong as you needed to be. So the beautiful thing about this quote, I hope it's okay to mention, well, it doesn't say it's okay if I mention his name, so I won't mention who sent it, but beautiful thing about that quote is that knowing that you've always been as strong as you needed to be, that no matter what befalls you in the future, you get a pretty good track record of always rising to the occurrence, whatever it is. So we're all focused on losing the psychological stress, and I would say it's not about losing the stress. It's about gaining a clearer memory, a clearer perception, a clearer attitude about who you ultimately are. And once you do that, what's going to knock you off? What's going to pull you down? Now, this is just for me. And then we'll probably end up leaving on this on this note. Someone asked me yesterday about one of the things that I'm a project that I'm working on for Discovery Channel, or to pitch Discovery Channel. And out of that conversation, I said, "Well, what do you think about this?" And I said, "My estimation, only for me, life is a death sentence. The dust is constantly working to drag us back down towards the dirt. You and I, we're circling the drain, moving ever closer to uttering our last words." And they looked at me, they were shell-shocked. Like, Brian, how can you say life is a death sentence? Because it is. And then just when they were like, oh, wow, what is he saying? I said, but it's that definition that makes today so special to me. Because what's today for me, and you're welcome to take this if you like, what's today for me? It's a stay of that execution. For those brave enough, bold enough to grab it, every day is a stay of that execution, of that death sentence, which if we're honest with each other, you and I know that's what we're moving towards. Now for the timid, crying about the tragedy of it all, oh, can you believe one day we're going to be worm food, I got plans, I got this, I got all these other things going on. That's not us. When you look at today as a stay of that execution, what are you going to do with it? So I guess in the end it comes down to, will you bring your own bold, or are you going to leave it in the bag? It really all comes down to that. If today is a stay of the execution, which is life itself, the death sentence, if today is that stay, how are you going to fill it? What are you going to do? All right, again, let me say that if you want to reach out to me, hit me up, allnaturalbeing.com. Thank you for everyone that texted in this morning, giving me some thoughts, their ideas. Glad to be hanging out with you. Please, I asked earlier, give me that 20 minutes. 20 minutes. And using the quote that I've got, adopt this for yourself. I've never been as strong as I wanted to be, but I've always been as strong as I needed to be. Oliver is dead on when he says that. How can you channel that for yourself today? All right. Love you guys. Going to get out of here. I will hang out with you again tomorrow morning. Don't forget, allnaturalbeing.com. Leave me an email. I'll trade you one. We can hook up that way as well. Thank you so much for spending a portion of your holiday weekend with me. If you're here in the States, if you're overseas, thanks for hanging out with me bright and early on a Monday, or later in the day on a Monday if you're overseas. All right. We're out of here.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
IPMNation.com.